Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Village of Alsip committee meeting. Today is December 9, 2019. We're going to call this committee meeting order at 7:30 p.m. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Trustee Delzell?
Here.
Trustee Zielinski?
Here.
Trustee Juarez? Here. Trustee McLaughlin?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Navas-Garza? Here. Mayor Ryan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we just concluded a board meeting in the last few minutes, so I'm going to, we did have a pledge of allegiance at that time, so I'm going to waive that for this committee meeting because we had just done so. With that said, I'd like to move forward to the bid opening that we have tonight for the 2019 Metropolitan Water Reclamation District High Priority Area, what's known as a cured in place lining for our, Mike, this is sewer lining, correct? Inversion lining, right.
All right, thank you. We have three bids to open this evening. The first bid is from National Power Rodding at 2500 West Arthington, Arthington Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60612. They have included a bid bond. Sorry. Mr. Frater, do you want each dollar amount read, the total per line item?
No, you just do it total.
Okay. Their bid proposal for making entire improvements is $521,780. Again, that is 521,780.00. The second bid we received is from Visu Sewer. It's V as in Victor, ISU-SEWER of Illinois, LLC, 9014 South Thomas Avenue, Bridgeview, Illinois, 60455. They also have included a bid bond. Their total, the bidder's proposal for making entire improvements is $522,450 even. That's 522,450.00. And the last proposal received is from Insituform, INSITUFORM Technologies USA, LLC, 17988 Edison Avenue, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005.
Get to sign this one.
They have included a bid bond and their proposal, bidder's proposal for making entire improvements is $484,876, 484,876.00. Mayor Ryan, that includes the bid opening.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start with officers' reports, starting with myself. On the agenda, I had the request for an approval to open the Village Hall late at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, for the Village Employee Post-Holiday Brunch. We're going to do something different this year. Typically, we used to close early toward the end of the day prior to the Christmas break, and we were told there's quite a few employees that might be off during this time of the year, and we're going to try something different and go with breakfast on January 8th instead. We had a lot of success with that recently, and that was the recommendation by staff members here, is to go with the breakfast. Also, I'd like to say I want to thank everybody that participated this past Friday night in our Holiday in Pulaski. Holiday in Pulaski was a huge success, but certainly couldn't be possible if it were not for the help and support from certainly Mike Frater and his crew from Public Works, Danny Triban, Water Department, Janet from Public Works, Erica, our office supervisor, who supervises the clerks. Special thanks to Roger Early, Building Commissioner, all the girls in the clerk's office, the fire department, police department. The CERT team did a real nice job helping out with traffic this year. Trustee Murphy was overseeing letters to Santa, and Shanae from HR. Worth Township was wonderful this year. We had quite a few events over at Worth Township, and I know I was over there for a little bit when they had the reptile show started, and they had these 85-pound snakes and whatnot that he took out, and everybody got a kick out of that and stuff then too. That was a lot of fun. Sarah from the library, certainly the Alsip Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much. Mary Grace, you guys did a great job helping with everything over there. The Prairie Junior High band and choir was out there, as well as the Shepherd High School choir and the National Honor Society students, and all of the sponsors who helped pay for the events, and all the businesses who participated on Pulaski. Without them, we would not be able to do this. And certainly, again, I want to just say that well done by everyone. And Becky, thank you very much. You did a nice job chairing this thing, and thank you for all the efforts that you made with your committee. Your committee did a real nice job. Thank you. That's all I had this evening. And we had the clerk's report.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Presentation of the November 2019 FOIA report. There were 16 requests last month. That is all, Mayor Ryan.
Thank you. Public forum. Anyone in the audience wish to address the board tonight? Nobody? Then we'll go to standing committee reports. The Finance Committee, Trustee McGlohorn.
First, I will have the usual list of payroll and accounts payable for approval. And next, I am going to turn it over to our Finance Director for a presentation on the FY19 annual report.
Thank you. We're required by law, and we've done it anyway, to present the audit for the prior prior fiscal year to the board, along with the management letter and internal control. So this is the annual presentation. Sitting to my right and your left is Chuck Kozlik, who is the principal for Clifton Larson Allen, who did the audit for that fiscal year. Some of what was in the spending and revenue side for governmental funds was actually in our last meeting at 6:30 as part of the tax levy. This will sort of go through some of the other aspects, but this fits nicely in with that. So without further ado, Chuck.
All right, thanks, Kent. You can see the slides there on the screen. Just a brief agenda. We'll go over the service team and who I had helping me out throughout the audit. We'll go over the scope of work, the services that we provided. We'll do the highlights of the governance communication, the management letter, and then some financial statement highlights as well. So you can see there on the board, again, my name's Chuck Kozlik. I'm the principal with CLA. I was helped by Cyril Thomas, who was my audit manager, Eric Gubiton, the senior associate, and we also had an associate and an intern help us out over the summer. So the scope of work for 2019, we did an audit of the village's financial statements. This was an audit done in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards in accordance with the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. We also did a report on TIF compliance, and that's TIF number 1. And then we did some non-audit services, preparation of the financial statements and related notes. We assisted Kent and the finance team. In addition, we did the preparation and proposal of some adjusting journal entries as a result of our audit.
I want to chime in. It includes TIF 1, but it also includes the other 3 TIFs as well.
All right. On the next slide, this is just a summary of our required governance communication. So that's our letter that we send to the board. Again, we did the audit in accordance with GAS and government auditing standards. We didn't have any changes in scope during the course of the audit. The letter also highlights some estimates and disclosures that the finance team makes that are included in the financials. Those include the pension liability and OPEB liability estimates, as well as the allowance for doubtful accounts. We found no indications of management bias or no sensitive financial statement disclosures included in the financial statements. We encountered no difficulties or disagreements in working with the finance team. And lastly, we received a representation letter that was provided and signed on October 25th, and as well as some audit adjustments for accrual and modified accrual reporting. In the management letter, there was one significant deficiency in internal control that we noted with regard to journal entries. This is a perennial issue. Really, the only way to solve it would be to increase the finance staff, and I understand you guys have done that recently. Mm-hmm. So I'm hopeful that that will help remediate that in the future. Has to do with proper segregation of duties and having enough eyes to both prepare things and then separate from a reviewer to make sure the adequate checks are done. All right, in terms of the financial statement audit highlights, if you want to skip one more slide, we issued an unmodified, what's known as a clean opinion. This is the best opinion you guys can receive, so congratulations for that. It was dated back on October 25th, 2019. If you do venture into looking at the financial statements, it's a very thick document. I'd encourage you to look at the MD&A. That's management's discussion and analysis. That's probably your, what you could call your executive summary. It goes over all the highlights of the fiscal year and the financial activity. That's followed by the basic financial statements, and then the CAFR also includes quite a bit of supplementary information, financial schedules and whatnot.
I'm going to jump in here. I would also suggest that you look at the letter of transmittal. We put a lot of effort into that. It's a lot of pages, and it's very readable. It doesn't necessarily provide a great summary of where we are financially, but it does say what the village board is doing and what how it's looking at things. The other is on the auditor's opinion. When he says it's an unmodified, clean opinion, it's worth noting that that is clean with respect to what our financials are. So the auditor goes through and says, are these accurate to the best of our ability? I mean, there's diminishing margins of return, but are these accurate? Are they faithfully stated? And that's what he is referring to. It does not make any comment upon what our revenues versus expenditures look like, what our balance sheet looks like, just is it faithfully represented?
That's correct. All right, financial highlights. At the end of fiscal year 19, net position, which is a good indicator of financial health of an entity, was approximately negative $61 million. This was an increase over the prior year, so things improved slightly. I'll note that if you go back and look about 5 years ago, that's when the GASB standards came out with regard to the pension liability having to be put on the books, and then 2 years later that was followed by the OPEB liability. Those are big numbers, and that's what moved it. Fiscal year 15, it was $23.5 million on the positive side, and you can see it's gone down, $40 million at a clip, roughly. But the good news is, those were the two big standards, and going forward, things should normalize in terms of any large liabilities like that. And then secondly there, the general fund, you can see the general fund is sitting pretty healthy with a positive $22 million. This was an increase of approximately $5 million year over year. That's really the extent of the remarks I had. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the committee might have.
Well, excuse me, I do know, if I'm saying the same thing too, I do know we have an ordinance, right, that says we have to carry, is this the same thing Ken I was talking about earlier, about carrying a fund balance to cover our...
Yeah, so we've got a few things going on there. The number he gave is the total amount of assets. Some of those are have different levels of commitments. I have to use the word commitment carefully because it actually has a specific definition. But that's the loosely commitments, whether they're assigned, unassigned, etc. So a good portion of that has been dedicated towards other things, including OPEB. From what is left over, it's called unassigned, and you are correct. You want a certain percentage of fund balance. We have a policy that's 25%. I've been looking for it. I don't believe it's in the ordinance. We are going to have to go back and look at our fund balance policy, and we will bring that to the board when we do that. That is normally done at least at the general fund level. I know Dan Triben has been thinking very carefully about, he would like a fund balance policy in the water fund as well. So we may even include road and bridge, but 25% is what's listed as our policy. I just haven't found out where that is. That's a fairly good way to do it, but we will look at it and bring it to the board. But so some of that, you're not supposed to call it this, but in days gone by, people would refer to that as the rainy day fund. It allows for, if you get certain hits, to be able to smooth out and not have to react dramatically in terms of trying to increase revenue when you don't want to be doing so.
Thank you for explaining that better, but that's what I was referring to. It's always been my familiarity with that is we're supposed to carry a 25% fund balance to whatever our budget is, that we're covered in the event of situations that we need to get out of and stuff then too.
And you're correct. And the other thing is the bond, the whole rating agencies and the people who purchase our debt or who might purchase our debt in the future expect to see such a policy, and you want to be kind of in line with where they are as well. It shows that you have that you're financially astute and you know what you're doing to be able to think through those things.
Exactly. We can have situations, obviously, Chuck, and you maybe see this in many communities, but we're doing the best we can to maintain not only our credit rating, but more importantly is to have a clean financial bill of health, as you just said then, too. So I appreciate your hard work on this yet, too. You guys have done a nice job for us. Thank you.
And the last thing I wanted to say on that fund balance is, as we just said in the previous meeting on the tax levy, in the next number of years, fire alone has over $3.5 million of different vehicles over the next number of years in the capital plan. We have some paving that needs to be done. We have some windows that need to be done. So there's a lot of capital that we'd sort of put off, and we're getting to the point where some of those from the general fund need to start to happen. So that help, we're in a position where we can start to look at those things when it comes budget time.
Very good. Board, any questions? Chuck, thank you again for your hard work, and I appreciate the unmodified, clean opinion. Very nice.
And I do want to thank Chuck and CLA. They've been our auditors here for a generation, as you know, and it has been a full generation. As you know, the board wanted to go out and put out to bid, which periodically is recommended out there, and did so. CLA is not going to be our auditors for the next period. We think very highly of them, and after that period's over, when we go out to bid again, we would love to have them bid.
Absolutely.
Because we have nothing but high regards for them. The only other thing I would say with regards to the audit is I want to thank all the other departments. They do help in the audit, but most importantly, I want to thank Finance, Brian in IT, and Heather, Shanae, all are great, but really what helps drive all of this is Karen Bonema, the village accountant, does a lot of work in the finance department, help coordinating with Cyril, and just wanted to thank her for her help through all this.
Very good. Thank
Chuck,
you.
could you sign in, please, for me? Thank you so much.
Trustee McLaurin, anything else?
That's all I have under finance, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move to the Fire Committee report. Trustee Murphy?
Under fire, the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association of Illinois celebrated their 50th year this week, and Mayor Ryan had the honor of giving the oath of office to the organization's new president, Alsip Fire Chief Tom Stasinski. Say that 10 times. On behalf of the village, we wish to congratulate Chief Stasinski and his family for being recognized by over 160 fire departments. It is the intent and purpose of the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association of Illinois to improve the fire service, to establish a communication network between the area fire chiefs, and to work towards the betterment of member departments. So congratulations, Tom. Great
Thank
job.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor Ryan, for giving the oath to the executive board as well.
No, my pleasure. Great crowd out there too, Tom.
I think we had 560 people there.
Something, yeah, it was a nice sized room out in
Big
Addison.
event.
Anything else, Trustee Murphy?
No, sir, that's all.
Okay, I wanted to bring up something the chief and I met on this morning, and I just wanted to clarify, or we have a little more dialogue. We were talking about, the chief brought up last March, and we didn't do more with it, and we just want to revisit lift assist from the fire department, as far as, if someone were in their home, and whether you fell out of bed, needed help getting back into bed because of a ailment, or if you needed to just be taken from the house for private needs, and to go to a doctor appointment and whatnot, if you really needed help to get out of that house, is what a lift assist is then too. So currently, Tom, why don't you explain, how many men go out on something like that?
It's an ambulance and engine crew, so typically 4 people. So prior to about 2 months ago, when we used to respond to these, we were not doing any documentation on our EMS side. South Cook County, which we work under the license of Dr. Heilixer from Ingalls Hospital, their rule is anytime the ambulance goes out, there needs to be some type of documentation, whether it's a refusal or what we normally, reports we normally generate when we go to the hospital. So we weren't doing that even with lift assist. So last March, when I brought up the conversation, we looked at a couple different options for lift assist. Now other departments do send other equipment except the ambulance, so they don't have to do the same thing. But they have dedicated companies for those companies. Example, Oak Lawn sends 4 guys on an engine to a lift assist. Crestwood sends normally 3 guys on an engine to a lift assist. They have the ability to have a dedicated companies for that. We don't have that. Our department's considered jump companies, so our minimum is 4 at each station, so 2 on the ambulance, 2 on the engine, or 2 on the truck, depending on what station they're at and what the call is for. So we're always sending an ambulance with the engine just because of the manpower sometimes that it's needed for the lift assist. When they enter the reports, we only have really a couple different options for our ambulance reporting. One is for transport when they go to the hospital. The other one's an outright refusal. And the third one is what we call treating non-transport, and that's something we started back in 2015. So we started doing the documentation again for the lift assist. We started using treat non-transport because we actually did something, so it's part of the documentation process. With our current EMS reporting system, as soon as the EMS report is created, if it's anything but a straight refusal, it goes directly to our billing company, and our billing company will send out a bill towards whoever it was for. So with lift assist, which again we're running into just an incredible amount of lift assist. So right now they're being billed as a treat non-transport because we actually had to physically do something with them. It wasn't just a straight out refusal. So that's where we're at right now. And like I said, I did meet with the mayor this morning. The current ordinance that's in on the website is way out of date. The new language wasn't changed for the ALS2. And back in our March conversation, somewhere along the line within the last couple of revisions, the treat non-transport fee was taken out for whatever reason, even though it was never really taken out of the ordinance. It was just missed somewhere during a couple of revisions. But it's been in there. It's been in there since 2015, so that's what the billing company is using right now anytime we go on a lift assist. When the mayor and I spoke this morning, one of the things we talked about is we've always looked at if people have a hardship or for whatever reason they couldn't pay the bill, we do waive bills occasionally. So that was the other thing. If somebody has a problem with that, it's just a matter of contacting us. We look at the facts and determine if we have to waive the bill or not. So if that makes sense.
So, and again, just to frame this, the reason the chief was pursuing the fees on this is because, like anything else, we don't live in a perfect world. Right. And your men might be on calls elsewhere, and you get a lift assist call, and certainly we're going to try and help those people, but unfortunately, you live in a community of 20,000 residents, and you still have some that call frequently for service and so forth. So I'm just reiterating what you had told me this morning.
Right, correct.
And stuff then too. So I gave everybody, Chief, a copy of what you gave me this morning. Mm-hmm. So everybody got their revised language on the last page. I had it in everybody's mailbox today just to say that the language that you wanted to introduce last March was basically just a response fee as follows. The response fee for a treat or non-treat, a treat or non-transport. In other words, we made an appearance at somebody's house was $125 for a resident or a non-resident, for that matter, then too, because we were going to a home. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I want to open up to the board and see if anybody else had an opinion on this before I say what I wanted to say.
Two other things. When we talked about this in March, we talked about having X amount of calls there before we started billing. With our current system, with the ambulance reporting and how it goes directly to the billing company, I am not sure if that is possible. I'd have to work with the billing company to see if that is actually possible. We don't do our own billing. We have a billing company that works with all the insurance companies, and they know the ins and outs, so our hands are pretty much off of that part of it as well. The other part with the documentation, and this is one of one of the big reasons we started looking at doing it more and more, is we've had a couple people that are pretty substantial, if you will. So there's always a chance of some of our guys getting hurt also. So we want to have the documentation on the EMS side, so in case something does happen to them and they get injured on the workman's comp, so we just have more documentation with that as well. So it's a couple different layers with that at the same time. That makes sense. We are getting, like I said, I told the mayor this morning, our two biggest EMS calls is lift assist and psych evals, and both of them are just going off the roof right now.
So then, Chief Stuzinski, if I may ask, is the idea then that language will be revised with Trustee Murphy having a new ordinance drafted to include that then, or an updated ordinance? Because right now it just appears as a rider to the ordinance.
It's not a rider. It was actually part of the ordinance. 125 was actually part of the ordinance back in 2015. And then whatever happened with a couple revisions, I don't know how it was omitted out of there. It was never purposely removed out of there. It was accidentally removed, I guess, when we did a couple revisions, when we started looking at what our billing done. So over the last couple of years, we've changed our billing format, and then I think January of 2018, now it's automatically 3% every year, so we don't have to keep going back to the board about increasing it. Somewhere along the line, we lost that, and that's why that snapshot is from 2015. We've never omitted it from our ordinance. So it wasn't a writer on top, it was actually part of the ordinance at one time. And the reason why we did that is and for example, I'll use this especially for a diabetic call. So we go on a diabetic call, we give somebody an amp of D50, which is, sugar water, if you will, a better way to explain it. We eat the cost of that D50. So when we go to the hospital to replace it, we eat the cost of that. So the object of the tree transport is anytime we're doing any physical service or anytime we're using supplies that we have to recuperate, that's what it was for. It was for anything but regular refusals, if you will, where we didn't do anything, if that makes sense.
Trustees, anybody else have any questions?
Well, I was looking at the minutes going back to March, and one of the big things at that time was that Trustee Dalzell specifically requested more information.
Right.
And I don't have any record of ever getting that information. And at that point in time, my recollection is that the board was adamantly against imposing an additional lift assist fee at that point in time. So it doesn't feel right that all of a sudden, just because of the way we're coding things in the system, if the lift assist fee was not approved by the board, we shouldn't be billing one.
Right. And at the time, we were not gaining or obtaining refusals. We weren't doing documentation on those calls, and we should have been doing it the whole time. So now we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing, following the rules with South Cook County, and that's how it's coded, is anytime you do anything physical, it's considered treat non-transport, because we are treating somebody. We physically lifting them up, physically lifting them in bed, we're still doing something. We're not just saying, okay, you don't want to go to the hospital, car accident, we get called for a car accident because of the airbags went off. PD called us to the scene for that. People didn't want an ambulance there, so that's just a refusal. We go to domestics, battery victims. People didn't want us there, that's a refusal. We're not doing nothing with them. That makes sense. So, and we never had any more conversation with the lift assist. I never brought it up because we had other things that were going on also.
Well, but I'm just saying that, I mean, if it's not something that we want to be billing for, there have got to be ways within the system to identify that this is a public service as opposed to an actual treatment.
Right.
So what you're saying is you're supposed to be billing them all along?
Anytime we do anything with anybody, yes.
You just haven't.
Anytime we're doing any type of treatment, yes.
You just haven't been billing.
We haven't been doing documentation for the lift assist. We do for everything else. We should have been doing. Anytime we send an ambulance somewhere, we are supposed to be doing the paperwork, if you will. Or now it's done on a computer.
Okay.
That makes sense.
What the chief was telling me this morning, too, is that, if you do have frequent callers,
right,
and we never discriminate. I mean, we take every call seriously and so forth, but we don't have the means of knowing, because we're not going, we're responding to a call like we always would. Mm-hmm. And, there's no way for us to determine, if it's the, the Smiths or the Joneses or whoever, and that kind of thing, too. It's that particular resident is calling for service today, and we're going to respond. And so we don't have, like, software that says, that we need to look at this more careful. I mean, we have to treat everyone the same.
Correct. We can't, and that's the conversation we had today. So let's say today's crew goes on a call at whatever address, okay? 2 days, then the crew goes on it again. They're not going to know that today's crew went on it. That makes sense. So there's really no way for us to be able to track that. There's no red flag that comes up that says, okay, we were here 4 times. The only way for us to do that is manually go in and try to track each one of them. It's not an automatic red flag. It's not an automatic tracking system.
Because there was some talk back when, you always try to find some common ground. I understand the chief's plight, and I want to say something else in a minute, but, to say that, hey, we're going to do 4 of these, and then you get billed after 4 or something like that, there's no way to control that. There's absolutely no way to look at that and so forth. And it's certainly your discretion as far as billing is concerned, which obviously you're going to be inundated with that cause at the same time then, too. But go ahead. Did any other trustees have any comment on this?
Didn't we discuss, Chief, that you had made mention back in, I'm guessing it was March, whenever we had the last discussion, that there were other services out there that can provide this?
There are services. There are services through Worth Township that they can put people in contact with. There's an organization called Plows. There's services through Cook County Department of Public Health. The major problem that we face is people don't want to look for these services. It is easier to say, okay, I fell, I need to call 911, and that's what they do. And the other thing, like I told the mayor today, so if we go on a lift assist right now, all right, and that ambulance is out on a call on a lift assist, another ambulance is out on a heart attack, they're down at the hospital somewhere. Now we get a third call for somebody that's an actual emergency. Now that ambulance is out of service helping somebody on a lift assist, now we have to call another ambulance in from another town to handle that third call. So it's a whole domino effect of things that go on there besides that.
In that particular situation, do we get billed for that?
For whoever called the ambulance, they'll get billed by the agency that assists us.
Okay.
But now there's a delay in care because now they have to come from another town.
Sure.
And now we're taking an ambulance away from their town that they're supposed to be protecting their people because somebody didn't want to go back and look to say, okay, where else can I get services from? Now, if it's an occasional, the doctors or whatever, or they broke a leg and they need to get moved, that's one thing. The problem is those are far and few in between. Last week we went to one resident 3 times within 4 days because they wanted to go from point A to point B in their apartment, or they fell out of their chair and they need help up. One incident I was talking to the mayor with is we went on one that had 6 family members standing there. I mean, good-sized guys that were there that, we'll just call 911 and they'll come lift them up. It's just getting ridiculous, and people don't want to look for the other services to help them.
And those people are not getting charged for calling for lift assist?
Yeah, we're charging them. Yeah, they're sending a bill because, again, it comes as street non-transport. We've only been doing this for the last 2 months.
Billing?
Billing, yes. Only because we started doing the ambulance reports for it, yes.
Okay.
And it's automatically, like I said, automatically goes to the billing company. Everything except just straight-out refusals go to the ambulance billing company. And that's one of the reasons why we weren't doing the billing before, because we weren't doing that for lift assist. The other thing is when people call in, we don't always know if they're injured or not injured. So they'll call for a lift assist, and then all of a sudden they're injured. Now they have to be transported to the hospital. That happens occasionally because at the dispatch, it goes from the call taker to the dispatcher, so that information sometimes is lost. So what we were doing for a while is we were responding to lift assist, non-emergency, ambulance only, and there quite a few times they were actually injured, or they're laying there for 13 hours. Well, we don't get that information over the radio all the time because a lot of times they don't tell the dispatcher or the call taker that also.
Where's a copy of our actual ordinance for this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Where's a copy of our actual ordinance for this?
I thought
It's not correct.
But I have a document and it's in front of me here. I've got a page 1 that looks like a page 1. I've got a section that I believe should be page 2, followed by another thing that seems to be in logical order.
And that's the one off the website.
And then the last page is the signature page, and it's titled page 2. And then some addendum sheet.
So, Trustee, that's what the chief was referring to, is the actual chart that you see in the middle. I inserted that for you. That's what the chief was referring to that was missing.
That is not correct.
The only thing that was codified was what you're looking at was the cover sheet and the signature sheet was all that was available. The chief produced the rest of the document that I included for everybody in your packet there.
I mean, the shame of it is that it seems to me, not an attorney, but if we've got a page one and a signature sheet, and we're missing the contents in between, I don't know how we're lawfully charging anybody for anything. Because we changed an ordinance and obviously unintentionally missed the charges.
So the last time, Chief, when's the last time I've got some of the others here too. The last time we addressed this ordinance was December 18, 2017.
Correct, and that's when we went from we added ALS 1 and ALS 2. So the attorney, and I believe, so these pages aren't all 100%. These are actually added on from what the mayor and I spoke to today. This is not off the ordinance, all right?
That's why I was asking.
Right.
Yeah,
So it is not accurate. The ordinance that is on the website is not accurate at all. So there's a combination of things that are missing on the actual, between the website and what was supposed to be on there.
Yeah. And I apologize, but Chief, back in March when we discussed this, I had specifically asked for numbers.
Right.
Because I understand what your point is, and I agree with most of it. But I need to know if this is an exception rather than the rule. And all I asked for was simple numbers. And while I appreciate you're not doing any computer entries for that, to me, you should still know how many of these lift assists you went on.
We can document how many lift assists, and that's the numbers I gave back in March is how many that we did in 2018 and up to that point in 2019, as well as other departments that were billing at the time. That was all part of the board packet back then.
And the treat and non-transport, I mean, I've seen this happen a bunch of times, where you guys get called for what somebody reports to be a 1050 PI. Mm-hmm. And you get there and you check on everybody, and everyone appears to be fine, and away you go.
Correct.
So, I mean, they were checked, they were treated, they weren't transport. Now we're going to throw 150 at them?
No. We'll use the car accident. So we go to a car accident. Everybody says, I'm fine, I'm not want to hurt. We don't do nothing with them.
Right.
We just have them sign and say, okay, you don't want to go with us? Here, sign a refusal. You'll be sore later. Go see your doctor. That's all we do with them.
Right.
They're not getting a fee because we didn't do any treatment with them.
So in that instance, you know, the ambulance is still rolling, engine, whoever goes along for the manpower. So the ambulance is, in theory, out of service because they're busy on that call.
Correct.
Same thing happens when you do an ambulance mutual aid, when you go to another community. Mm-hmm. We're down one of our ambulances, and you know, that's the reason why you guys developed that, and it's a pretty cool system. But we don't always guarantee that our ambulances are available.
No, there's no way you can.
Resources.
Right.
When I'm taking a look at this, and where I work, the PD provides lift assist to the FD. So if there's a lift assist, the coppers will go there and help the FD out with those things. It just seems to me that that's part of the reason that we're there. There's numerous repetitive type calls for service between fire department, EMS, and the police department. And some of them, I guess, broach that area of nuisance. Sometimes it's the price of doing business, and public safety is the business.
Right.
So,
and that's all we're looking at, is recouping our costs for providing that service.
I get it. And I was glad to see that in this addendum here where it actually defines the resident, because this is the definition that I recall when I was employed here. And with regards to our local citizens, business, or employee thereof, I was concerned with that in the very beginning, not having seen that in some of this other documentation. And I apologize. I didn't know we were going to speak to this issue today. Otherwise, I would have sat there and tried to get all the information that I had with regard to the original ordinance. But I agree with you 100%. We've got to fix this. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure that I'm in 100% agreement for the lift assist for that response. And I know that the finance director really likes that annual assessment. I don't know if that's a proper way to do it either.
Well, I actually, Chief, and you know, I think I think you manage your department really well, and I like your ideas. And you and I talked this morning, and I do like the idea you're trying to, obviously you're trying to think out of the box a little bit to try and recoup some of these fees, or maybe slow down the frequency of, like you said, maybe my services are better needed elsewhere. I did, you know, I'm not doing my job well if I don't comparatively call around. So I did.
Oh, absolutely.
I went on the internet. I did make some phone calls to some local communities, and I thank you for sharing what Oak Lawn does too. Oak Lawn's got a lot of guys. They got 4 men in a truck, so they're pulling up and they're still doing these but they're not charging for it either.
Correct.
Right? I called a few other towns, you know, Burbank, Rockford, and I've met all these different mayors and stuff then too. So I kind of reached out to a few of these guys today, and everybody's taking it on the chin. You know, everybody, they're not charging, in other words, for the service. So they are providing these services to the community and so forth yet, too. So much like Trustee Dalzell said, I wish we had another way of addressing this, but I don't know if it's billing for this. I don't know. In other words, $125, like you said, you know, to go out because you know you're just going to help somebody back in the bed, or if you're going to help somebody out of their house for a doctor appointment, whatever the case may be, as opposed to everybody showing up at an accident scene and refusing treatment. It's kind of the same difference, except physically you're not doing anything at the show up at the accident scene yet too. So, like I said, I can appreciate what you're suggesting, but at the same time, I don't know if, and let's put it this way: if you can produce a report that tells us otherwise, that the majority of communities are charging, you know, certainly maybe we should align ourselves up with that. But if the majority are not, I don't know why we're doing that and stuff then too.
Back in March when we met, and this, I believe, is still in the packet, I had a report of all the fire departments that are charging for lift assist,
Okay.
and what their schedules were and what their fees were. I mean, some of them were pretty steep.
What's
Well-
our fee?
What's that?
What's our fee?
125. I think originally I proposed 100, but the 125 is already our treat non-transport. Yeah, I think if I remember right, I proposed $100 for that,
Well-
not the 125. 125 is already in our ordinance for treat non-transport. That makes
And I'm
sense.
not going to discount it. I appreciate the effort that you've done, and again, I applaud your efforts to stay ahead of a lot of those things. I would love to be able to get what we presently have as our ordinance for this.
I'm sorry, Trustee Dalzell, I did just go on Muni Code, and it is simply the first page and the signature page.
Yeah, that's
Which
not good.
means,
Yeah.
to my way of thinking, that the schedule was an attachment that hadn't been incorporated into the ordinance that the attorney drafted to have presented.
Right.
And the adjustment is simply for basic life support and advanced life support 1 and advanced life support 2, which does not address the fees that you're discussing.
So
That's way out
certainly
of
we got to
whack.
address this thing, and I think we got to do it in short order.
Well,
I would appreciate, Chief, if you could, and I apologize if you've given it to me already, if I can get the numbers that we have for the lift assist, as well as what you're also talking about with regards to the CIT, that would be great as well.
I was going to say the same thing, Chief. If you can prepare that, let's bring it back in 2 weeks at the next committee meeting for further discussion. And in the meantime, it would be my recommendation to suspend any, fees at this time, okay? Until we iron this out.
Okay, just got to figure out how they're going to code that. Right.
In terms of the ordinance, are we going to redraft it, redo it?
Well, I think, as the chief said, we have an incomplete one that we're posting, and not that everybody's going to go online to look up Muni Code before they call, excuse me, for assistance. But we can certainly clear this up at the next meeting to say, well, first off, are we going to charge for a lift assist? This is going to be the number one question. And secondly, we need to have the chief just put the ordinance back together for review, and so that we can have our village attorney do the same thing to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be then, too.
So going back prior to December of 2018, page 2 was the correct ordinance at the time. 2018, we brought up about ALS 1 and ALS 2, so page 1 and the signature page was part of what was drafted with the ordinance change, but the amounts were never put in there. So when I brought this back up in March of this year, page 3 is what was supposed to show for the rates that were brought up during the discussion.
And it may have been brought up during your discussion, but it was
Correct.
never incorporated into the ordinance document itself. That's why it wasn't.
Correct. The amounts were approved. It was approved by a board meeting. It was approved, and then the attorney was drafting up the following meeting or whatever. So that's why I brought it up, that the chart's supposed to look like that, and it does have the treat non-transport fee on there, as well as the automatic 3% increase every year. So this is right in a couple different fashions, if you will, but the one that's on the website is not correct. And that's what we need to fix.
And the part that I have against this automatic increase is that if we address this thing in 2020, and 10 years later, never touch this ordinance, there's a 3% modifier that goes into there, and somebody takes a look at the ordinance, and then they have to break out a calculator in order to figure out compound interest for that period.
Just to, trustee, to let you know, I did not suggest a 3% increase. I never have. Mine is based on what the municipal price index is when I suggest that, because that's something I can do one time every year.
Right.
It's in IML's publication. So the 3% is something different.
No, and again, I get it. It's just that visual person, and so when I take a look at it and it says $100, I know it's $100. I don't sit there and say it's $100. Oh, but it was passed in 2010 with a modifier somewhere down in the fine print, and then I have to sit there and break out the calculator and do over and over and over again.
If it makes it easier on the ones where we have that, I could put on the website what the current, anything that's indexed, what it's at.
Right.
But I don't believe we should be indexing anything past inflation rates. I just don't think that's...
When we did this, we discussed this with the billing company, and that's what the trend was, what the normal increase is in medical costs. That's why that 3% was put in there. It was also put in there so we don't have to keep going back every year and adding whatever the new cost was, because we were falling way behind for a period of time with that. So this kind of took care of that problem.
And I get that, but at the same point in time as our tax levy takes care of a lot of those costs. I mean, that's the whole purpose of our levy.
And the other thing to keep in mind is whatever we bill, we very rarely get 100% of what we bill.
I understand that.
Especially Medicaid. That's why we kind of went with
Right.
the GMT is trying to recoup some of those costs.
And back to our conversation, I think it was just last week, where we talked about some of the exceptions that could be done, and you again spoke of it this evening, where depending upon the circumstances, some of these things aren't billed.
Right.
But we don't have in our ordinance, which is the law, that ability. So I don't know who is authorized to do that.
It's really not broken down what's considered treating non-transport. It's a judgment. It's not defined anywhere. It's like, okay, this is not, so on and so forth.
And it's those gray areas, I think, that are going to cause us some issues. And when we sit there and whoever the committee is or whoever the individual is that makes these determinations, all I want to do is just make sure that it's based upon a set of parameters, they're followed all the time the same way, so we're not sitting there and saying yes in one circumstance but no in a similar circumstance, but we forgot about the previous one.
Right.
Just like to sit there and, if we're going to do it, let's do it uniformly, whether we're doing it right uniformly or wrong uniformly. At least we're doing it
And that's when they do the EMS reports, that's why there's only 3 categories. It's one of those 3 categories.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But I would definitely like to make sure that we get this thing resolved in short order.
Yeah, Chief, like I said, if you can bring back all the information, let's talk about this at the next committee meeting, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. We want to help you as well, too, but obviously we've got to make a decision here on this thing, that's
Yep.
all. Okay,
All right, no problem. Thank you.
thank you. Trustee Murphy, anything else?
That's all, sir.
All right. Police and Traffic Safety, Trustee Dalzell.
On December 5th, 2019, the Village of Alsip Police and Fire Commission gave the oath of office to a new police officer, Dennis Stevens. The village will save money by not having to send Officer Stevens to the academy the 5 months, as he is already a certified police officer and actually is already in an Alsip uniform. Congratulations, and we welcome to the Alsip Police Department Officer Stevens. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Public Works and Boat Launch, Trustee Juarez.
I have a presentation of the Public Works Department for November 2019 monthly activity report. That's on Mayor.
Thank you. Next, Sewer and Water, Trustee Nava-Esparza.
Item 1, presentation of the Sewer and Water Department November 2019 monthly activity report. Item 2, discussion for approval to purchase water meters and FlexNet radios at a cost not to exceed $61,075.00. This purchase is for the ongoing replacement of residential water meters and has been appropriated for in the FY20 budget. And there was another agenda item that didn't make it, and Commissioner Triben will speak to it.
Yes, I had gone out and requested quotes for repair of one of our pumps. I received the last quote on late Friday, so I wanted to get it before the board so that we can move forward with the repair. I did get, again, like I said, 3 quotes. The lowest quote was $16,286, and that's to remove one of our pumps that we have a little bit of a vibration in. We've determined that it's got some bearing issues in the lower pump housing, so we need to remove that pump, send it in to be completely torn down, rehabilitated, sandblasted, rebuilt, and reinstalled. And that, again, like I said, the estimate, the quote for that is $16,286. Any questions on that?
You want to put that on the agenda then, Dan, next week? Okay.
Were you looking for any immediate action on it?
No, I mean, we have plenty of spare pump capacity.
Very good. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Dan. Anything else, Trustee?
No, that's it.
Okay. Building and Health, Trustee Zelinski.
I have a presentation of the Building Department November 2019 monthly activity report. That's all I have this evening.
Okay. Human Resource and Insurance, Trustee Murphy.
No report tonight, Mayor.
All right. Special Committee Reports, Economic Development, Trustee Nava-Esparza.
Yes. Item 1, discussion regarding the terms of developing the property commonly known as 11638 through 58 South Pulaski for Firewater Barbecue and Brew and 2 adjacent businesses. And item 2, request for an approval to have the village attorney draft a new RDA or redevelopment agreement for 11638 through 58 South Pulaski. And we have Roger Hopkins here with us this evening to comment and provide information.
Okay. We began, I think, negotiating with these developers again early in October. And what they have come back to us with is they came back to us with their lenders adjoining them or accompanying them and are prepared to start working on the project. So we've revised the term sheet for the redevelopment agreement, but it requires you to approve it and then authorize the city attorney to draft up a new redevelopment agreement. The principal change, I think, is the fact that they're promising now 2 restaurants, and now they've had a couple more years of experience with their existing barbecue restaurants and came back to us with better forecasts for what they estimate sales are. And with the second restaurant, the sales are as strong for the second restaurant as we were originally looking at for Firewater. So the combination of the two is something that will generate roughly $40,000 to $60,000 a year in sales tax revenues for the village, if we can get them both to open up on that site together. The one challenge we've got, and the lender was with them to tell us that, is that they want some assurances about what the property will cost in annual property taxes, because Cook County property taxes are very challenging for any commercial business, any new building in particular, but in this case, the property taxes are almost as much as the annual mortgage payment, and they wanted some reduction in that was available through a 7C, and then through continuing that then throughout the rest of the term of the TIF district with some property tax rebates that would substitute for the expiration of the 7C. One of the things I guess I'd offer as an observation is that with those projections of sales tax revenues, they're roughly almost 1.5 times more than what you might see from your best national franchise restaurant like a McDonald's. So waiting these people out, working with them as developers and their lenders, I think is worthwhile for the village, because you'll be very hard pressed to find another set of retailers or a couple of restaurants that can operate with as much potential sales tax benefit to the village as you're going to see from this project. So I'm encouraging you to, keep going ahead with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this also fits in with the property tax. In that video that we watched earlier tonight, it mentioned that businesses pay 2.5 times the property tax of residences, and so Cook County property taxes are definitely very high for businesses, and it's not surprising that when they start out, if they're going to locate in Cook County, that they want some sort of relief. So what this was structured was to look sort of like a 7B, which is for retail, and is a longer one. But instead of that, it was structured to look like a 7C, which is a shorter period of time, and then using TIF money to turn it into essentially a 7B. That means that more of it comes from property taxes under the village control rather than other taxing bodies. So it's probably a better deal for school districts, et cetera. But what that does give the village is a little bit more control to make sure that where they're trying, the targets that they're trying to meet in terms of sales tax and other targets, they can meet, and that we have we as a village have some sort of control over that. They also would like to have some of those restrictions after they hit a certain dollar amount released on them, and I think the RDA this time around would have that. So once essentially the village and TIF combined costs have been reimbursed, most of those restrictions on the business would be lifted from an RDA point of view. There would still be TIF reimbursements, where as long as it meets TIF eligibility and cost reimbursements, and as long as they meet the few remaining things that they have to do that the RDA says. But the bankers would like to see a lot of those restrictions lifted after a certain point, and so that they're more independent and on their own.
When does the Pulaski TIF expire?
I think it's
2033.
Yeah, 33, 34, somewhere around there. It really depends. If you recall, on TIF 1, there's that weird gap year or two as it winds down. It also has been structured so that it will go down a little bit in the years when the intergovernmental agreement with the village and the other taxing bodies goes into effect. At some point, 10% of any additional revenues from tax increment financing would be distributed, and it will go down for that.
Also, I thought it was important to note, which you were just trying to explain, and for the benefit of the public, when we talk about 7C and 7B tax incentives, typically our village, we haven't used the 7 in in some time, right? Not as long as I've been on the board 8 years, I don't think we've ever approved a 7. We talked about it in the past. But like we approve quite a few 6Bs, which is a 12-year tax incentive. A 7C is a 5-year incentive, correct?
5-year, but a 7B is a dozen years as well. Like a 6C, it's a dozen years. So this is effectively becoming like a 7B, but the board has a little bit more control over parts of it.
I think the other strong thing to note, and we've talked about with all the meetings we've taken on, I think the concept and the players, in other words, the investors, are extraordinary in this case yet, too. I think these guys, everything we've looked at, first off, we're going to use the name Firewater because that is the group we spoke to originally. I don't want to disclose the other names, but they're a strong company, and they've always had their vision with us. They should have been up already, but they changed their footprint, and now they're going to go with a nice size 6,000 square foot footprint that they're going to do. The biggest challenge for us has always been the challenge that Mr. Hopkins has had all along is the design of our properties on Cicero Avenue. The reason that the village, exactly, you know, the depth is really a challenge. So we went wide with these things, and that's exactly how this is going to be designed. And they're forecasting now with these performances almost triple the revenue that we originally looked at 2 years ago, and which is why we think they're such a great partner to bring in. Not to mention diversified cuisine. And the other is going to be the idea that our return on investment, our clawback, if you can elaborate on that, Roger or Kent, how long are we talking?
It depends on how you look at it, but it's sort of either 5 to 10 years. I do have to point out that very frequently in TIFs there is no return on investment. The majority of these actually do not pay for themselves within a TIF. So when we're even talking about any period of time where there's a payback, that's a good thing. Going back to what you were talking about earlier, how we haven't done in many years, if possibly ever, 7Bs and 7Cs, the landscape has changed. If you pick up the newspaper, the amount of retail in this country is dwindling. It is not increasing. So what you have to offer for a successful business to come into Cook County and open up a business here is not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's a different dynamic. And this particular business, it has taken a little while. Part of it's changing the footprint, part of it's changing who the investors. The part that hasn't changed in all of this is I've tried their food. It's very good food. People recognize it. They're very successful, and they've always been interested in the village of Alsip during this whole time. So it wasn't from lack of interest in wanting to be here. They wanted to be here. As the mayor pointed out, Pulaski is a challenging footprint to get something of this size on there because of the depth. They needed to figure that out. They needed to figure out some of their other partners who were with them in this expansion. But they have always wanted to be here. They've always had a quality product. We are looking at sit-down restaurants in Pulaski with quality food, which is what I think that sort of everyone in here has been looking for quite a while.
The other two, this is investment we always want to talk about. This is the idea that we're going to actually develop land. We have good investors coming in here. We're going to create jobs. These are all positives. And again, we kind of got blessed meeting these gentlemen through our building commissioner, Roger. Roger Early brought them our way a couple of seasons ago. Certainly it was our intent. They probably should have been up and running already based on, we did this exercise a couple of years ago, but this is even a better venture now. It's almost funny how that kind of shook out. But again, I value the idea that they're looking to us. This will be Firewater's 4th store, and they've also got some other investments out in one of the other communities with craft breweries and stuff then too. So this is going to be all new construction. The other thing that we liked was the idea that when they came in a month ago with their banker and so forth, we talked about obviously the premium. The thing we really have to identify is parking all the time. I got to make sure they got enough parking on this place. And so they're going to go with independent kitchens, but they're going to have a shared dining room, which would be great. So you walk in, you're going to have a choice of a couple different types of cuisine under one roof. Many restaurants do that, just like you go into the mall. You'll see a dozen places at the mall, and you can sit down and share the same dining space and so forth then, too. So what I wanted to do tonight was certainly bring this to the board for an overview, and I appreciate Roger's been on this for 2 seasons. I asked you to come out tonight to speak to it and move forward. In other words, I wanted to ask the board if everyone's comfortable with this agreement, that we have our village attorney draft a redevelopment agreement to move this project forward.
Would we be putting a timetable on any of this, Mayor?
I think that would be a great thing to impose. Roger?
It shows by end of year, right?
Yeah, I think our term sheet, would require them to, get under construction in the spring and be open in the fall.
Yeah, it does say that in here.
That's the way it was structured originally when we followed this pattern, back in 2017, early 2018, and we were looking for them, to get started in April and be open at least between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
And I think some of that had to do with the fact they needed the right partners and to get all of that in place. They're all on the same page right now. The whole team, including their bankers, are on the same.
They brought in their banker from out of state, and he really enjoyed what we're doing on our side with promoting investment, and he was all on board with this too. He was totally for this project. So, Kenty, I don't think we have to go to a vote on this next week. I think we can do a consensus to move forward.
Yeah, I think all you have to do, there's no vote needed right now. It'd be better. I think what you're essentially asking is the consensus of the board to go and
draft a redevelopment agreement.
Redevelopment agreement, authorize the attorney to write it. It will take a few hours to do this.
Yeah.
Billable hours, but this is a good agreement.
Okay. Is everyone okay with this?
Yes.
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 Very good. Thank you very much. Roger, thanks for coming out tonight, too. I appreciate it. Next, we'll wrap up here. The Village Properties, Trustee McGlohan.
All right, under Village Properties, we recently went out to bid for the waste removal contract, and so for next Monday, we'll have a request for approval to award the Heritage One refuse contract to Republic Services, who was the lowest bidder, at the following annual cost breakdown: 2020 at $17,822.28, 2021 at $18,356.88, 2022 at $18,907.56, 2023, $19,474.68, 2024 at $20,058.84, 2025 at $20,660.52, with options for both 2026 and 2027. Also, request for approval to award the Heritage 2 refuse contract to Republic Services, who was also the lowest bidder for that facility. The following annual cost breakdown. For 2020, it'll be $36,553.80. 2021, $37,650.36. 2022, $38,779.80. 2023, $39,943.08. 2024, $41,141.28. And finally, 2025 at $42,375.48, with options also for 2026 and 2027. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Roger Early, I was going to say, I know, just for the record, so the board hears it, this did include additional recycling bins and so forth?
Yes, it did at both properties instead of just Heritage One.
Okay. I've met with a lot of the residents, and that's their big thing, is that they want to increase their recycling responsibilities. And so I really appreciate that on their side, too. So that's included in this. And you said that not only were these the lowest of the three accepted, but in your eyes, these were good numbers, too, huh?
They are very good numbers.
Okay, very good numbers. Thank you. Next, ordinance and legislation, Trustee Zelinski.
No report this evening.
Okay. And IT, Trustee Dalzell.
The IT manager, Brian Massari, is currently working with the accountant, Karen Bonema, to soon have a click-to-gov application ready for the residents. They'll be able to pay all bills online, as well as check their water bill and apply for building permits and et ceteras. The IT manager is also working on implementing a new Cognos 11 program that is more user-friendly and allows village personnel to access necessary analytical data, whatever that means. And the IT manager, accountant, and fire department secretary, Danielle Tima, have now implemented an HD program for all fire department invoicing, and now have eliminated the spreadsheets. Ken, what is the analytical data?
Yeah, so basically, our ERP system does not download and upload data very well. It is very unuser-friendly. They purchased an IBM program that allows you to download into Excel, and in certain cases even to upload. So now you can finally, rather than literally printing out pieces of paper that don't tell you much, you can now download data and start to work with it, as well as get more real-time information plugged automatically into reports. Ultimately, we'd like to have it in such a way where we could format reports and have it download automatically and go to people who need that. So maybe on a monthly basis, et cetera, depending on who needs what kind of reports. So it gives the ERP system something it just doesn't have, which is usability.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, real quick, what's an ERP?
It's enterprise resource. It's from my point of view, it's our accounting software. It's the billing software when you go to pay your bill up there, but it's a lot more. It's literally utility billing. It's the building's permitting software. It's all sorts of things. So it's not just accounting, but it's a lot of what we do integrated.
Thank you. Planning and zoning and licenses, Trustee Juarez.
I have a presentation of a list of licenses dated November 25th through December 9th, 2019. That's all, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next, any presentations, petitions, or communications?
I do, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge and congratulate GC America for receiving or being awarded the 2019 Kenneth Brace Memorial Award by the Calumet Area Industrial Commission. Just a brief description of the award. The Kenneth Brace Memorial Award is named after the CAIC's first executive director, Kenneth Brace. The award recipients are selected by the board and membership committee. The recipients can be a company that has demonstrated excellence in its industry, released a new product or service, invested its business located in the Calumet area, and or shown support for the CAIC. So I was unable to attend the luncheon on Friday, but GC America was awarded last Friday.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was in attendance for that, and that was a great turnout. All the business community came out to Beverly Country Club. They had a full house there, and Trustee Juarez and I had met with the Calumet Area Industrial Association Commission. I'm sorry.
You and I.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Trustee Nava-Esparza and I. Thank you. I'm sorry, Trustee Juarez. Maybe you were there.
Blaming you for things.
Trustee Nava-Esparza and I met with the Calumet Area Industrial Commission, and when we were talking about some available grant monies and so forth for apprenticeship programs, they were trying to help Alsip businesses, and it was Trustee Nava-Esparza's recommendation to help GC America with apprenticeship programs, and that's where they got this award for. So thank you again for your recommendation on that. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll adjourn this meeting at 8:47 p.m. Thank you.